alright, like...
Hey there, movie buffs and sci-fi enthusiasts. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into the cosmos once again with a review of Zack Snyder's latest installment in the Rebel Moon saga Part 2, The Scargiver. Now, if you caught our thoughts on Part 1, you know we had some mixed feelings. But hey, every movie deserves a fair shake. So let's see if the Scargiver manages to blast off to new heights or crash and burn in the vacuum of space. First off, let's talk about the legacy of Rebel Moon. This isn't your typical sci-fi franchise, folks. From its inception, Zack Snyder had big plans, originally envisioning it as part of the Star Wars universe. But hey, who can blame him for wanting to carve out his own space opera? Part 1 introduced us to a ragtag group of rebels fighting against the oppressive Imperium, setting the stage for what promised to be an epic showdown in Part 2. But did it deliver? Well, stick around to find out. Now, onto the plot of The Scargiver. Part 2 picks up right where we left off, with our heroine Cora, played by the talented Sofia Boutella, thinking she's taken down the villainous Atticus Noble for good. Spoiler alert, he's back, and he's not happy. Cue the team gearing up for battle against overwhelming odds on the planet Velt. Sounds thrilling, right? Well, hold on to your helmets, because things take a turn for the geek. Well, let's just say they take a turn. Here's where things start to get a little rocky. While Part 1 had its moments, the Scargiver falls into some all too familiar traps. Instead of expanding the universe Snyder built, we're confined to one planet, with flashbacks galore and exposition served up like it's going out of style. The pacing feels off, the action lacks punch, and don't even get me started on the dialogue. It's like they took everything that worked in the first movie and dialed it up to 11, but forgot to bring along the heart and soul. But it's not all doom and gloom, folks. Despite the script's shortcomings, the cast does their darndest to keep things afloat. Sofia Boutella shines once again as Cora, bringing a fierce intensity to the role. And Jimon Hounsou. Don't even get me started. The man's a powerhouse, delivering a speech that had me ready to charge into battle alongside him. If only the action that followed had lived up to the hype. Snyder's no stranger to using slow motion to amp up the drama on screen. We've seen it work wonders in films like 300, turning battles into mesmerizing spectacles. But in The Scargiver, it falls flat. And it's not just the slow-mo that's the issue, it's the lack of depth in our characters. From the main cast to the folks of Velt, we're left with little more than empty shells. Even when pivotal characters meet their demise, it's hard to muster up any real emotion. It's like mourning the idea of someone we never really got to know. And that, my friends, is a recipe for disconnection. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the action. Or should I say, the lack thereof. For a film that devotes nearly its entire final hour to action-packed sequences, it's disappointing to say the least. Sure, there are moments of promise sprinkled throughout, but they're overshadowed by missed opportunities and uninspired choreography. And don't even get me started on the R-rated cut Snyder teased. Even with a few tweaks, the core issues would remain the same. It's like trying to fix a leaky boat with duct tape. It might hold for a bit, but it's bound to sink eventually. One moment that stands out amidst the mediocrity is the introduction of a certain robotic character, voiced by none other than Anthony Hopkins. You'd think with talent like that, we'd be in for something special. But alas, it's another letdown. The character feels like they're plucked from a completely different and potentially better movie. It's a missed opportunity to delve deeper into a fascinating element of the story, only to be abandoned in favor of a lackluster finale. And trust me, folks, the disappointment runs deep. As we reach the climax of The Scargiver, it's hard not to draw comparisons to a certain galaxy far, far away. But here's the thing, it's all surface level. There's none of the emotional resonance or epic reveals that made Star Wars so iconic. And when you find yourself reminiscing about other recent sci-fi epics like Dune, Part 2, you know something's gone awry. Rebel Moon may have had grand ambitions, but its execution falls short at every turn. And as the credits roll on The Scargiver, you can't help but feel a pang of regret for what could have been. And there you have it, fellow travelers. Our journey through the cosmos of Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 2. The Scargiver has come to an end. Whether you found yourself swept away by its intergalactic intrigue or left adrift in the void of disappointment, one thing remains clear. The legacy of Rebel Moon is far from over. So until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your feet firmly planted on solid ground. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into cinematic space, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more out-of-this-world content. Until then, stay curious, stay adventurous, and stay tuned for our next cinematic odyssey.